Just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today. 'Cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave their life to me. And I'm gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave their life to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave their life to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the
I have heard that song several hundred times in my lifetime, and every time I hear it, I still get a lump in my throat. Last month, we played that for the very first time, and you know what? A number of you said, Jack, I wish you guys would open your meetings with that same theme song more often. So that's what you want, and that's what we do. So on behalf of the board of directors of the Republican Club here at Heritage Ranch, we wish to welcome our distinguished guests, our dear friends, our neighbors, our beloved neighbors, and we plan to have a great meeting for you tonight. There will be a lot of information you will get as the meeting moves along, so thank you for that. I would just like to add another point, and that is simply this, that our membership here in this club is over 600 members. Sue Reeves, our wonderful precinct chairman, tells me that she has worked and tried to determine where we fit in this grand scheme of things, not only in the county but also in the state of Texas. And she came back and said, Jack, I think this club is the biggest in the state. So how did we get that way? 11 years ago, two ladies sat in that back dining room and decided that we ought to have a Republican Club. And they put it together. Those two ladies are not with us any longer. But I think they're looking down on us fondly. So I think they were here today that we have gone well beyond any thoughts that they had for the size, magnitude, and the influence that this club has. So BJ Caruth and Joel and Reynolds, those are our two founders, and again, they are no longer with us, but I think they'd be very proud of the group of people that are here. Now, how did we get to be this size? Well, just this year, our membership has grown well over 30%. So we have a lot of new members. And I would say to the new members that we have gone through some effort to make certain that at every table that we could, we have one of our board members or we have an elected official sitting at that table so that you can have access to the people that have the information that you'd like to know more things about. Now, we don't put two elected officials at a table, and we don't put two board members at a table. We put one each so that that person can be available and that information can be available, especially to our new members. And to our new members, I would say, why do you come? And this is why I think you come here. I hope I'm right on this. I think you come here because, like me, you kind of get beaten down by some of the stuff that goes on in this country today. I have not seen so much divisiveness as I've seen now, and I've been around for a long time. Just look at me. But when you come here, when you come to this place at this time, especially at this time, what you are meeting are people who are sitting at the table with you, like-minded people. They feel the same way you do about the border. We are sick of what we see that goes on down there, of the drugs and all of the other bad elements that go on. And we are sick of an administration that's not doing much about it. But we are hardened. But we are hardened by our state, our political leaders in our state, one of which you'll get to hear from tonight, and their resolve to help secure that border for us. It's not just the border, though, is it? It's many other things in our civilization, in our particular time, in our community. And again, I'm not going to take up a lot of time, but to you young members out there, let there be no mistake about it. We back the blue. Okay, if I could now, I'd ask you to be seated for just a moment, and we will ask our elected officials to come up. Not only our elected officials, but those who are running for office to come up and take this microphone right here, if you would, and introduce yourself to the group.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, I'm Heritage Ranch resident Ken Logston. I serve on the Town of Cherokee Town Council. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sammy Knapp. I'm Council Precinct 3 here in Untitled Chapter. Thank you.
And I'm Chris Hill. No, I'm not. I'm Judge Raleigh. I'm your Justice of the Peace. I just want to tell you that I come out here quite a bit because my adopted mom lives out here, your precinct chair, Sue Reeves. And it just never amazes me because this has got to be the most active club that could possibly get the governor, the lieutenant governor, the general, at a whim's notice. You're the only club that I know that can do that. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Matt Carpenter. I'm running for Collin County Constable Precinct 1, and I appreciate your support. Thank you all very much.
Hello everybody, my name is Scott Grigg. I'm running for Collin County Tax Collector Assessor.
good evening. My name is Henry Lester. I'm your mayor and a proud member of this club for, I think, 9 years now. So thank you all for what you do, standing up for the right things. God bless y'all.
Good evening. My name is Randy Johnson. I am running for Collin County Court at Law number 5. Thank y'all for who you are, what you do, and for being here.
Hello, I'm Darrell Hell. I'm your Collin County Commissioner for Precinct 3. Thank you all very much for making this the reddest precinct in Collin County and the reddest Commissioner precinct in Collin County.
Hello, my name is Ricky Williams. My wife Tammy and I have launched an exploratory committee in an effort to unseat Van Taylor as our U.S. Congressman. I have in my hand a petition in lieu of a filing fee. If I could get y'all to sign it, it's non-committal. But if I can get 500 signatures, then I don't have to pay a filing fee whenever we do file. So thank y'all very much.
Good evening. You all want to meet me because I'm your friendly Collin County tax assessor collector. And I can tell you that until October, we're not going to mail our tax statements, but I'll be delighted to accept any payments that you want to make.
Good evening. My name is Jimmy Angelino, and I also, usually I don't need it like I blow people's ears out. So, my name is Jimmy Angelino. I'm running for Collin County Court of Law number 5. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Abraham George. I'm your SREC Committeeman to Texas Republican Party.
Good evening, friends. I'm Chris Hill. It's my privilege to serve as your Collin County Judge.
Thank you. And now another special part of our program, and I'd like to ask you all to stand for our anthem and our pledges. And Clayton Barnes, our Director of Marketing and Communications, will lead us.
Let us salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Ready?
Okay, if everybody would be seated, please. I have to officially call the meeting to order. I will explain that to you. We have this little thing called bylaws, and if we were Democrats, we wouldn't follow laws. But because we're Republicans, we follow the bylaws, and we are required by our bylaws to go through a nomination process every year for members to our board. And so it is the duty of our past president, Ted Puchez, to conduct that session, and I'm going to ask Ted, if you will, to tell us what's next.
Well, listen, I appreciate that, all right? Two things. Whenever a politician or a board member pulls out a piece of paper and says this is going to be short, you know you're in trouble, all right? It gets even worse when he's got to put his glasses on because he can't see what he's talking about, right? Normally, this would have taken place last month, but because of the governor, the board of directors has moved this for a month, all right? The positions that are open are the director of membership, the director of meetings, director of marketing, telecommunications, and treasurer. These were elected last election for 1 year. The normal term for a board member are 2 years, but because we look to rotate the officers and not replace the entire board at one time, we decided to be able to do this for a 1 year term, while the remainder of the officers moved to a 2 year term. Can I have the next slide, Bob, please? All right. Per the bylaws, our board president, who is allowed to be able to nominate one person, is nominated Bob Sehan, and the board has selected Gary Wyndham to be on the committee. You, all right, the membership, are allowed to nominate 3 individuals to serve on that board. All right? The nominating committee will then accept nominations from various individuals in the membership, vet them, and then bring them back to you at next month's meeting. So I would ask, all right, if there is anyone in the audience who would like to nominate someone for the nominating committee, to do that at this point in time. Get Randy, please. The nomination for Mike Petrick is in the nomination. Any other nominations? Ulrich? Georgina Fosak? Anyone else? Anyone else? Please. For Rich DiVirgilio. Do we have any other nominations? If there are no other nominations from the floor, we will close the nominations and accept those 3 nominees for the nominating board. Thank you very much. Jack, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ted. Would you please stand for our invocation? Join me in prayer, please. Heavenly Father, once again, we thank you for this country. We thank you for our state. We thank you for our county and our city and all of our elected officials. We pray your grace and your wisdom for each of them as they do their duty and their responsibility that they've been elected to. Father, we thank you for this club, the fellowship we have, and the purpose we have to serve you right here at Heritage Ranch. Thank you for our meal tonight. Thank you to those who prepared it. Give us a great time tonight in our meeting. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. And now you may enjoy the rest of your dinner.
Well, as usual, I have the great honor and privilege to welcome our speakers. I love this job. Anyway, I'm sorry for the delay. It does set us back, but it doesn't deter us from an extraordinary speaker. But first, I have a question. As I look out, another extraordinary great crowd tonight, right? All of you. Another great dinner, right? And now, another fantastic speaker will be coming up before you, our Attorney General in this great state of Texas. And that reminds me, what makes Texas so great? I don't want a bunch of answers, but just think about that. First of all, maybe the people, right? And we're all a part of that, even those of us that weren't born here, but we're true Texans now. And maybe the resources. We've got a lot in our state. And maybe the opportunities. But I'd say foremost is the leadership, right? The leadership of our representatives, governor, attorney general, and those who we've chosen, and the hard job we've given them, especially today. So today we're going to be hearing from our own Attorney General, Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton is the 51st, I think I have that right, 51st Attorney General in the state of Virginia. I mean, state of Virginia. I have to tell you why I said that. First of all, I came from Virginia, but he went and got his law degree in Virginia. So I had Virginia on my mind. Anyway, in the state of Texas, the 51st. I have to give you a few figures because I found them really interesting. As an Attorney General, he leads more than 4,000 employees in 38 divisions, 117 offices in this most important state, and nearly 750 attorneys who handle 30,000 cases annually. That's a tall order. But in addition, and more than any other time that I have seen, he also has a tall order in the struggles that we have to undergo coming from Washington and the legislature. So he really has a tough job. But his experience in dealing with these struggles has not started with the Biden administration. He had some experience with the Obama administration when he first became Attorney General. And at that time, or at least in the early part of his career as Attorney General, and continues, he has dealt with a lot of child support cases, protecting Texans against abuse and fraud, enforcing government laws, and listen to this one, preventing federal overreach, right? Representing the state of Texas in court. His efforts to keep Texas great did not begin with Biden, but they have been exacerbated in the last 6 months, shall I say. Currently, we're really faced with an out-of-control legislature and an out-of-control White House. But before he comes up to speak to you about some of the situations that he's facing and what he's doing in the state of Texas to combat the difficulties, just a little bit of history about himself. Our Attorney General was born in Minot, North Dakota, while his father was in the military, in the Air Force, at Minot Air Force Base. Our Attorney General graduated from Baylor University, where he met Angela Paxton, who is our dear state senator. And then he got his degree, law degree, as I said when I slipped and said Virginia, at the University of Virginia Law School in Charlottesville, Virginia. And before I came here, I lived just over the mountain in the valley, in the Stanton-Waynesboro area. I'm sure you know it well. he was first elected, his first elected office was in 2002, and he was elected to the Texas House of Representatives, and this was in the HD 70, which was not our district. But although he spent 10 years in the state house, he then was elected as state senator, and then he was our state senator in the same district as Senator Paxton, Angela Paxton, in number 8. In 2014, he was elected as our Attorney General, as I said, the 51st Attorney General. He is married to Senator Angela Paxton, and they have 4 children and 1 grandchild. I think she must be about a year old. 9 months old. I knew it was 2020. And they do belong to Prestonwood Baptist Church in Plano. And now, without any further hesitation, let's show our Attorney General how much we think of him and support him. Let's welcome him to our podium.
I don't know if there's a better place to come and be introduced than by Joan. Is she not just the most amazing person ever? I really love you, Joan. You're awesome. So I also realized, I was going to say, I really do hope like I'm your second favorite politician. I already know it's Angela, so I'm just trying to find her second. And she must have said it 10 times before. Actually, I left this morning to do a Fox and Friends interview at 4:50. And I woke her up because she was having to get up and fly to Austin for redistricting. She's on the redistricting committee in their starting session, and she must have said 5 times, do not forget to tell them that I miss them and I wish I was there, and I'm only not there because of session. So I have done my duty, right? And actually, you know, there's one person here, if I had not met, I don't think I'd be here. Does anybody know who that is? Sue Reeves. So, I moved to Collin County. We moved to Collin County with our 3 kids at the time. Now we have 4. In 1997, I wanted to know how to become a precinct chair and get involved and see what I could do in Collin County. And I showed up at my first precinct meeting and I met Sue Reeves, and she got me involved. So I would not be Attorney General today but for Sue Reeves. Isn't that amazing? How many of you all remember, were you living in this area when I was the senator? Was anybody? A few? So I'll just tell you the story, and if you've heard it, laugh anyway. So I had all these people, because I represented this great area, very Republican, and it was, I think in my worst year, when Rick Perry got 39% of the vote against the Democrats, I got 72. That was my bad year. That was the off year. So obviously very good. So when I was moving to, I had to move to Austin because at the time there was a provision in the Constitution that said you had to live in the capital city or the capital. No one really knew what that meant, but I had to change my driver's license and voting, and it really just felt kind of icky at first. And then I told people, they were asking, I had all my friends up here were like, how can you stand? Like, I'm sure Paul Raleigh said this. I'm sure he said, how can you stand to live in Travis County? It is so liberal. I would never live there. And I would have said to Paul, you know, it's really not that bad living in Austin because it's not that far from Texas. So I always like to tell people when I'm not there, it's great to be outside of Austin. And whenever I tell that little story about it's not that far from Texas, people always laugh. Isn't that funny that everybody would get the joke? So if you all are okay, I want to tell you what's going on with the border. I want to tell you what's going on with election integrity, some other things. But I would like to tell, if you're okay, just because I've had these kind of crazy experiences, would you all be okay if I told a Trump story or two? Okay. So have you heard any of these? Have I told you? Because you might want to get up and leave, Chris. So I'm going to tell it anyway, even though Chris and Laura have probably heard this story. So I didn't know Trump, and I will confess, I thought Trump was not going to be our best candidate. I was Ted Cruz. So when he won, I was pretty clear on this, that I thought Hillary would be horrible. There's really no choice. I'm going to support Donald Trump. And he turned out to be an amazing president. But my experiences with him were totally surprising to me because I didn't know him. I never had a connection to a president, even the ones from Texas. And so I got to go to the White House with a bunch of attorney generals, both Republican and Democrat. What I noticed, it was on the first State of the Union address, and what I noticed was he came in with the vice president, they took pictures with us, they talked to us, 45 minutes of just hanging out with them, he was answering questions, and I'm thinking, man, his staff has got to be dying. It's his first State of the Union, I could tell they wanted us out of the room. And so he finishes by saying, hey, how many of you all would like to go to the Oval Office? He goes, no, let me ask it different. Who doesn't want to go? So he took us over there. We went through the back way, which I had never gone through the Rose Garden. Walked in through the back doors, the outside doors, pretty cool. We're there for another 45 minutes. He's talking to us. I mean, Mike Pence even grabbed my camera because we couldn't get anybody to come leave Trump. And we did. He took a selfie of us on my phone. So I've still got a selfie with Washington, the picture of Washington over our shoulder. Pretty cool. So anyway, I had a really good impression. He seemed very hospitable, definitely wanted to take care of us. And he spent an hour and a half on the night of what would be probably the biggest speech he'd ever given. And so I was really amazed. So I didn't think I'd ever talk to him again, but I was wrong. Turned out, like a month or two later, he was coming into Dallas to speak at the NRA convention, and so was the vice president. So they asked if I would meet the president, greet the vice president when they came in. So it's a dreary day in Dallas. And of course, security in Dallas, when you have a president coming, pretty significant because of our history. And so Ted and I are standing out, it's a little drizzly, and the vice president comes in on Air Force 2. He comes down the ramp. I said, welcome to Texas, Mr. Vice President. I didn't say Virginia, Joan, I said Texas. And so he said, you guys are doing a great job. And he got in his limo and he went off to the NRA convention, which is about 20 minutes away at the convention center. So then they came up to me, the advanced guy, and he said, hey, the president just texted me, and he wants to know if you'll ride in the Beast, the limo with him. And I said, well, let me think about it. Yes. So anyway, he comes down, I greet him, and I say, welcome to Texas, Mr. President. And he said, let's get in the limo. So we get in, the Secret Service has me sit right next to him. So he's right here, I'm right here. John Kelly is across from me, facing me. He's the chief of staff at the time. And then Ted is across from the president. And I'm like, this is crazy, right? I mean, no one expects to be in the Beast. And so we're kind of riding in. I'm just kind of taking it all in. Everything's shut down. We're just, no traffic. Nice. And then the president and Ted are kind of bantering back and forth. The president's giving him a hard time about losing the election to him, which I found entertaining. And it was good-natured. And then the president turns to me and he says, Ken, I want to endorse you today. I want to endorse Ted Cruz. Who else should I endorse? And I'm like, what's he asking me? Like, I don't even know this guy. Like, this is crazy, right? So I said, well, I think you should endorse the governor. He's going to be here. And then I said, well, you know what? You should endorse Angela Paxton. You guys would have agreed with that, right? So he goes, who's that? I said, well, she's my wife. She's running for Senate District 8. And he goes, well, tell me about her. So I did. And after a few minutes, he goes, I'm in, I'll do it. And I'm like, that's all it took? I mean, doesn't John Kelly have to like check a box? Or doesn't this have to go through a bunch of advisors like with every other president? Nope. Okay, great. So we get to the convention center. I have no idea where to go. I don't have my security detail with me. I'm with the Secret Service. And so I'm kind of lost, because usually I have help. I need help. I have help. So we get out of the limo, the Beast, and I just start following the president. And I follow him into the convention center. We walk into this room. It's a pretty big room. And there's a big screen TV I noticed off to the right, and Pence is speaking. And I see the president there, but I don't see anybody in there with him. And I kind of panic, and I think, oh my gosh. And I turn around, there's nobody behind me. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I missed my turn. Like, I was supposed to veer off, and they didn't tell me, and I didn't really have anybody to ask, like, where do I go? It was just me and the president. So I walked in, and I did exactly what you would have done. I went and sat down next to the president. And it was weird, because he started quizzing me. He wanted to know, like, he said, hey, Ken, why did you sue me over Obamacare? And I said, because you're wrong. And I went through the whole constitutional argument. And he said, okay, how about DACA? Why did you sue me over DACA? And I said, look, I know these aren't your policies, but they're still unconstitutional. it doesn't matter to me whether you're President Obama or whoever, I'm going to sue if there's something unconstitutional. I don't care if there's an R by your name. If something is not right, we're going to defend it. He goes, okay, whatever. So then we talked for a long, and then all of a sudden people started coming in. I was alone with the president for 15 minutes wondering when they are going to arrest me. I'm seriously going, like, something bad has happened and they're going to figure out I'm there. Sure enough, 15 minutes go by, the Secret Service comes in, Ted comes in, and then John Kelly comes in. But they leave us alone for another 10 minutes. So I continue to talk to the president. I'm like, totally can't believe this is happening. Still wondering, like, how is this even possible? And then finally he says, look, I gotta go speak. And I said, well, Mr. President, please don't forget to endorse Angela. Because I won't forget, I promise. Meanwhile, Angela is in the convention center at the women's lunch. The president starts speaking. As you might imagine, he kind of talks for a while sometimes. So he does the endorsement, like, right away. And of course, Michelle was with her, who was her campaign manager at the time. And their phones just blow up. Ding, 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 like, 20, 30 text messages in like 2 minutes saying, Angela, the president endorsed you. That's so awesome. How did you get that? Blah, blah. She's like, what? She goes, and then she finally thought, okay, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea how this happened, but I know that Ken's involved somehow. So she finally sneaks into the convention center. I don't know how she got by Secret Service. I would have been arrested. She got in, sitting next to me, the president's still speaking. I said, she goes, what's going on? And I kind of tried to explain it to her, and I said, hey, when this is over, let's go meet the president. He ought to know you, just endorsed you. So when he finished, we headed towards the back. We intercepted him. I said, Mr. President, I just wanted you to meet Angela Paxton, who you just endorsed. I said, it'd be good if you met her. So then we talked for a few minutes, and then he finally said, I just want you to know, Ken, I'm glad that I endorsed her. There's a good reason I endorsed her, but I like her better than you. I just want you to know that. That's really what he said. And then he walks off and he says, see you later, Ken. And I'm like, this didn't happen. This is incredible. So that wasn't the end of my stories. I won't get to tell you all my stories because I have a story every time I was with him. I probably with him, 30 times. I probably talked to him on the phone another 50 times. I mean, I had just had this amazing access. If I called the president, he returned my phone calls. It was amazing. I could not believe it. So he comes in a second time after the Santa Fe shooting, and we're meeting him. This time the governor, Ted Cruz, and Dan Paxton, we're meeting him at the Air Force Base at Ellington. So he's going to head down to Santa Fe. So anyway, he gets on the plane, the governor greets him first, and then it's Ted, me, and Dan. So we walk up to him after the governor we gave him like 30 seconds. We weren't going to give him very long. And so we start talking to the president, and then within 30 seconds he says, Ken, what do I do about Obamacare? Because I don't want to defend it. And then I won't tell you which elected official kind of interrupted, started talking about something else, and then the president cut that person off after 30 seconds and said, I'm not talking about DACA, I don't want to defend that either, but what am I going to do about Obamacare? What do I do, Ken? And I tried to talk again, with that many politicians, it's hard to get your words in. And so I didn't finish, and finally after another 30 seconds, the president says, Ken, go get in the limo. Just go get in the limo, okay. So I walked up to the Secret Service, I said, look, I don't know how to say that. The president just asked me to get in the limo, so I'm just telling you, I don't know how to do that, just get in. And they set me up, and I realized, guess what, I'm in the same seat, I'm sitting right next to the president when he gets in there. And sure enough, he gets in, and 2 other people get in, and I'm with him the whole day. And at the end of the day, he pulls me aside and says, Ken, I don't want to defend Obamacare. I don't want to defend DACA. He said, what I want you to do, don't call that blankety-blank Sessions. The Attorney General didn't like him much at the time. Didn't like Rob Rubenstein, who was the next up. He told me to call this guy named Noel Francisco. Anybody know who that is? Noel Francisco was the Solicitor General of the United States. That person is responsible for arguing all of our U.S. Supreme Court cases. He represents the United States on behalf of the administration. So he said, I want you to call Noel, tell Noel Francisco that I like him. And then I want you to tell him, I don't want to defend Obamacare, and I don't want to defend DACA. And I said, well, Mr. President, I don't know how to say this. I'm not on your side. I'm suing you. I'm like the other on the back. I'm suing you. I'm not suing. I said, I'm not your lawyer. I'm on the other side. He goes, I don't care. I want you to call me. And he said, and then I want you to tell him, he said, then I want you to report back. And I looked at the president and I said, I don't know how to call you. And he said, well, he's my advanced guy. He said, look, he told the advanced guy, I don't even remember what his name was. He said, make sure he can call me whenever he needs to. Sounds good. So I called Noel Francisco, very awkward conversation. I said, no, I realize that I'm suing you. Twice. And I said, and I'm not on your side. I said, but I was with the president just the other day, and he wanted me to call you and say he wants you to switch sides. And I know you understand our arguments. We think both of them are unconstitutional. Whether they're politically good for you or not, I don't know, but they are unconstitutional. And he also wanted me to tell you that he really likes you, and that he also wanted me to tell you that I'm supposed to report back to him. And he goes, well, can you just report back to the White House counsel, Pat Cipollone? I said, nope, I'm going to do what he said. So magically, the United States government, Solicitor General, when their responses were due, they were due back-to-back on DACA and Obamacare. Guess what? They switched sides. They switched sides. And this is kind of leadership that I know that his lawyers didn't want him to do it, but I know that he felt like it was the right thing. He, in his heart, could not defend those laws. And it turned out that these lawyers called us. They kept trying to get him to switch, and then they'd already switched to our side. Now California is defending Obamacare, New Jersey is defending DACA. It becomes, it's a momentum thing. They're on our side. It gave us good momentum with the courts, and then his guys were trying to make him switch again. And Noel Francisco and the solicitor, or the White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, called us and say, hey, you know what, this Obamacare thing, it's kind of dicey politically. We got to change some things up. We're not going to maybe be with you like we always are. We know you're always with us, we're always with you, but maybe not on this one. So they're having to file on that day for Obamacare. And they're having to file a brief. And so now we're expecting a bad brief. It's going to be long and attacking our position. And 8 o'clock that night, my Solicitor General called me and said, hey, it's really weird, but this brief is only 1 page long. And it says, Texas is right, Obamacare is unconstitutional. My Solicitor General, who clerked for one of the U.S. Supreme Court justices, a very smart guy, goes, I don't understand, it's just exactly the opposite of what they told us. I said, well, I may not be, he goes, I don't understand how that happened. I said, well, I may not be as smart as you, but I know what happened. The president, he went against his whole team. He went against his lawyers. I said, I guarantee you he switched. He wouldn't let him do it. So that was a Thursday. Everything's good. I get a call Monday morning. I'm getting ready to, actually I'd just been out running. I was going to jump in the shower, and I was going to head to a bunch of meetings I had to go to. So I get a call, just I'm about to jump in the shower, get a call from Madeline. For those of you who don't know who Madeline was the president's assistant before she disappeared. And Madeline said, hey, the president would like to call you in 30 minutes. Can you take the call? And of course I said, yes. So I waited 30 minutes. The president did not call. I waited 45 minutes. The president did not call. I waited an hour. The president didn't call. So I thought, the president is not calling. So I set the phone up on this little stool so that I could see the phone. I got in the shower, and of course, yeah, you know what it's like to miss a call from the president? It's very uncomfortable. So I got out, I called Madeline back, I said, I'm really sorry, I missed the call. Any chance he can talk? I'll put you right there. Hey Ken, the president says, did you see what I did last week? I said, yes sir, I did. He said, do you know why I did it? Why I didn't change? And I said, well, not exactly. I said, I'd love to know, why you stuck with us. He said, well, they came into my office and they said that I needed to sign this, that politically it was bad for me to stick with you on Obamacare. It's going to be a very controversial issue. We should go back and, he said, and switch sides. And he said they wanted me to sign this document that said I was switching sides from Texas to California. And when they told me that, I told them there's no way I'm ever switching from Texas to California. That is exactly what happened. So why do I tell this story? Well, one, they're pretty interesting to see how the President of the United States just makes these calls, despite the fact he's got people telling him to do different things, a lot of people. But it's that kind of leadership that I think inspired America. And that's why I think he set so many examples of things that he did that were so, that ended up being so important to us and made him, in my opinion, one of the greatest presidents, certainly in my lifetime, maybe in American history. And so that's the kind of leadership I think we need across the nation, but particularly in Texas, because the reality is we matter. We matter to the whole country. The people that are in this room are going to have an impact on whether this country survives. And we are at that point where what Texas does will either be enough or not enough. We're on the brink of losing, I think, the Constitution that was set up by our founders. We have a president who ignores the law, and I'll talk about that right now. The President of the United States, when he came into office, Joe Biden said, hey, I'm not going to enforce immigration law. Come on in. I won't deport you. Okay, that is a violation of federal law. That the law does not allow him to do that. He just said, federal law goes to the side. It's my law. Come on in. We're not going to deport you. We sued him on day 3 of his administration. Sorry it took me so long. And we were successful. We get an injunction against him on day 6, a temporary. We ended up winning that. However, as you well know, he went on to try to violate all kinds of other laws, the Stay in Mexico program, everything that worked under Trump, he tried to undo. Now, for those of you who wonder, is this just some accident? It's not. He knew exactly what he was going to get, because Obama had the same policies that he turned back to, that Trump basically undid. Immigration was out of control under Obama. It was under control under Trump after he instituted the Stay in Mexico. No more catch and release. Not letting prisoners who get out of prison stay in this country. Building a wall. All of these things work. And Biden methodically undid every single one of them, knowing exactly what was going to happen, knowing that we were going to have more drugs, knowing that the cartels would make money on every single person coming across the border, a minimum of, I've been told, of at least 4,000. And by the way, the drugs are deadly. Fentanyl has increased massively. The Chinese ship it in, the cartels move it in, so it's pretty ugly. We're going to see more deaths from fentanyl, I think, than we've ever seen. Of course, there is also the property damage, there's the crime, there's the cartels gaining power, and then this little thing that they lecture us about, how you need to wear a mask and you need to get a vaccine. However, we're going to let 212,000 people cross the border this month with COVID, and guess what? We're not going to tell you where they're going. We're going to spread them all over the country so that COVID could be everywhere. We can blame the states for not stopping it. That's the president that we have. He doesn't care about federal law, and he makes up his own law. And then he comes to Texas and other states and attacks their state law. So that's why, and I'm sorry it's taken me, I've only got 14 lawsuits as of today, our 14th lawsuits against the Biden administration. That is a much faster pace than we did even under Obama. We had 27 in 27 months. This time we have 14 lawsuits already in 9 months. So that's how bad it is. It is worse than it was under Obama. They have sped the process up, and that fight, if it's not led by Texas, will not be led at all. It'll be just interspersed, some lawsuits, but nothing big, nothing to really stand up against the federal government. Believe me, they know we're here, they hate us. And one of the things they did to us to demonstrate that is they cut off all our Medicaid funding. $30 billion a year to Texas would have affected all kinds of people in Texas. They cut it off. We sued them. We won. They'll probably appeal it, but we got that money back. But that's the type of punishment that we get as Texans for standing up to the federal government. So fighting the Biden administration, crucial. However, just as important, maybe more important, is this election integrity issue. It's huge. If you look at what happened in Texas versus these other states, we all got to watch election night, things we'd never seen before, counting election votes for days in those 6 battleground states. Most of you wouldn't know this, but Texas was supposed to be one of those states. And the reason I know is because we had 12 lawsuits. It was more than we'd ever had before, related to mail-in ballots. And did we get sued in Collin County? Nope. We didn't get sued in Collin County. Did we get sued in Tarrant County? Nope. We didn't get sued in any conservative county. We got sued in Bexar County, San Antonio, Travis County, Austin, Harris County, Houston, the worst counties for us with the most liberal judges. And it looked dire because they sued us in very difficult places. The courts of appeals in a lot of those places were not for us. So not only were we going to lose in district court, but we were going to lose in the Court of Appeals, and time was not on our side because the longer they could delay, the more likely they could get the mail-in ballots out. And all they had to do, we had 12 lawsuits, federal, state. I told my team, you can't be good. You got to be great. And what I meant by that was, you can't win 10 lawsuits and lose 2. You can't even win 11 lawsuits and lose one, because if you lose one lawsuit, this state, Trump won't win. We'll lose the Texas House, we'll lose 4 Supreme Court justices, and we'll never get it back. Because with mail-in ballots, I know from prosecuting fraud, I know you read every day there's no fraud. I prosecute, we've got hundreds of fraud cases going right now, and they're mostly mail-in ballots. So that is a pure lie. And the reality is, the other side knows it. And so I called Donald Trump in May, before the election. I said, I don't know what's going on anywhere else, but you need to know you're at risk of losing Texas. And that you're at risk, if I don't win 12 lawsuits, all 12, you are going to lose Texas. And I said, I don't know what's going on in the rest of the country, but my guess is this looks like a very well-planned strategy. It's genius. It's really genius, because think about it. They just have to win once. One time, one place. I can't stop them. And they almost had us beat in Travis County, because they were about to mail out the mail-in ballots, over 1 million. And the Court of Appeals wouldn't get our case fast enough. They wouldn't go through it. And so we're sitting there, and I told my team, I said, look, you got to figure out some way around this. And they did. They found a provision that had only been used, I think, once, where they mandamus the district clerks who were going to send out the ballots, and they did it directly to the Texas Supreme Court to bypass the Court of Appeals, and we got our win. We stopped Travis County from mailing those ballots out. But for that, they get those ballots out, and the genie's out of the bottle. We saw what happened when the genie gets out of the bottle. It's not good for us. And so, election integrity is huge, which is why, and I'm in trouble for this, we filed a lawsuit against 4 states. Y'all remember that? It was in December. And why did we do that? I had so many people offering up all these ideas. Sue Pennsylvania, there's so much fraud there. They went from 200,000 mail-in ballots to 2.5 million. Sue them. I can't prove fraud in other states. The theory we came up was a constitutional theory that said those states did not follow their own state laws, which they're required to by the Constitution, and therefore, because of that, my voters are disenfranchised in Texas, because those elections affect the entire country. Now, California, their rules allow for all this crazy cheating and fraud. I can't sue that. But what happened in Pennsylvania is every area changed the law the way what they wanted to. That creates all kinds of issues. The reason we filed at the U.S. Supreme Court is a state, according to the founders, we can't sue another state in Texas. We have to go directly to the U.S. Supreme Court for fairness reasons. It makes sense. And supposedly, under the Constitution, everybody's supposed to have their day in court, unless you bring an election lawsuit in federal court in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, and then suddenly you don't have standing. And for that, just so you know, the State Bar of Texas is coming after me and my first assistant, saying we filed a frivolous lawsuit. So we have been battling that ever since. I think Rudy Giuliani lost his license. So now you have this bar complaint process that's overseen by the Texas Supreme Court. You have them supposedly now overseeing my office. You all elected me, and supposedly now they can tell me, a different branch of government can tell me if I can go file a lawsuit and punish me if I file a lawsuit they disagree with. That's where we're at even in Texas. But this is an issue that we absolutely have to pray and hope that these other states fix. We're doing some of that in Texas. This election bill that they passed came very close to being a very bad election bill, and it turned out to be a very good election bill. Other states need to do the same things, or we will lose this country. And if they pass H.R. 4, which they were trying to pass H.R. 1, this is a mass effort to federalize elections. Why do they want to do that? Because they force all of us to have the same crazy rules that California has, where you do as many mail-in ballots as you want, and we can't control who votes. We won't know who votes. There'll be so little integrity in our elections, you won't even want to vote. So right now, we've got to make sure we're voting. We're telling our friends to vote, to not lose hope in the system, because even though we have fraud still in Texas, which we're prosecuting, we are making progress, and we can win this fight. Third issue I want to talk about, and my wife wanted me to make sure that I mentioned that she actually filed this thing called the trigger bill. So if Roe v. Wade is struck down, her bill would go into effect and strike down abortion in Texas. And you'll note that the legislature did a very good job passing the heartbeat bill. So if there's a heartbeat, that baby cannot be aborted. And it's a very interesting piece of legislation, because it doesn't give me or any district attorney the ability to do anything about it. It allows every individual in this room the ability to go file a lawsuit. So now it's a civil issue, and the courts are now opened up so that these abortion providers, if they break the law, can be sued by anybody in this room. And I think it's a very creative approach. We've already defended it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we've gotten it to stay in place. We've been sued in federal court. We've gotten it to stay in place. So every day that happens, 150 babies live. Every single day. And we filed an amicus brief. For those of you who don't know, most people don't know what an amicus brief is. It's a friend of the court brief in the Mississippi case. There's a Mississippi case going in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. Texas led a coalition of 24 states total. And then you have Mississippi defending their 15-week ban on abortion. We are arguing not only should the court agree with that, let the states regulate this, because right now the only group regulating abortions are the Supreme Court. They're kind of operating as like a legislative branch for the whole country just on abortion. And so we are arguing that process since Roe v. Wade has not worked well, that it should go back to the states. Each state can make their own decision based on their voters, what they want, and how they want to regulate it. It is the biggest assault we've ever had on Roe v. Wade. It is the first real big-time case, and we should know by next June how that turns out. But keep us in your prayers because it's a pretty big fight. We think the state should make that decision, and then the voters can decide how they want to handle that issue. And finally, I wanted to talk about, and I'll be happy to answer questions, I wanted to talk about this whole mask mandate thing. And the whole mask mandate thing, whatever you think about masks, is a problem because I feel like this idea that Obama created, which is, I'm the president, I don't have to follow law, I make the law. And I don't care what Congress does, I don't care what the courts say, I don't care what the states want, I'm the guy that decides that. We had to sue him, we were successful almost 80% of the time, stopping him from doing that. But he created this mentality, and I think it's gone to the local level where people are literally thinking they can just look at state law, which in this case with these mask mandates, state law allows the governor, if there's a disaster or some type of crisis, to make these executive orders. He made one as it related to masking. No governmental entity can force you to wear a mask. That doesn't stop you from wearing masks. It doesn't stop a business from requiring masks. No governmental entity. And yet here we have 85 school districts in the state of Texas, along with counties and mayors, deciding they're going to just violate state law. So we have sued many of the school districts. We will sue them all if we have to. And ultimately, we may lose some of the cases along the way, but when we get to Texas Supreme Court, I'm pretty sure that state law is going to matter and that we're going to be successful in teaching a civics lesson that local government doesn't just get to ignore state law, just like Joe Biden doesn't get to ignore federal law. Even if you disagree with it, there are plenty of laws that I have to enforce. A lot of people don't understand this. I actually have to go defend laws that I don't agree with, and I have to go sue on behalf of the state or defend on behalf of the state on laws that I don't agree with necessarily. But my job is not to change those laws, it's to defend the state. Angela can go change those laws. So she's the one that has that ability, along with every other representative in this state, every senator. So that's where we're at, and I want to just finish by saying this. The Declaration of Independence, you will remember, the founders put that in place before they wrote the Constitution. It was very simply said, the government doesn't give us our rights. None of our rights come from Joe Biden or Donald Trump or from the governor, from anybody. They come from God. It says that we are all created equal and that we all have these inalienable rights. And that those rights, when the government starts taking those rights away, we have the right to reform that government or replace that government. It's the people. And that is not the mentality in Washington right now. They think they grant those rights, and they think that those rights are theirs to take away or to give to you. And if we ever start believing that, I promise you this, we will lose this country. So I just want you to know, I believe that not only do we as Texans need to fight that, but I believe that the whole country needs us. And it's groups like this that are going to make the difference. And if you are not speaking out, you need to speak out, because the reality is if we don't start speaking together, you'll remember what Benjamin Franklin said. He said, if we don't hang together, we'll hang alone. So you'll have to remember that, because it's true. If we have a few people speaking out, they'll go after them. They won't go, but if there are enough of us, they can't stop us, because I was talking to somebody in the room, they said, don't forget, we're still the majority. So I want you guys to remember that. You guys are the silent majority sometimes. We need to be the vocal majority. We need to speak out and defend this Constitution that we are so blessed to have. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I promise you this, I won't stop fighting.
we know that the remain in Mexico was reversed, I believe, by the Supreme Court, am I right? Can you explain where we are with that? Is that going to, how can it be implemented? In other words, how can we really close down the border?
So the Remain in Mexico program was instituted by Donald Trump. It was genius, and it was one of the most effective things he did. Because what was happening was all these lawyers from America, the immigration lawyers, were teaching people how to get around the immigration system. It was a great loophole. We like to protect asylum seekers, people that are persecuted, they're being treated poorly in their own country for religious or political reasons. We provide a haven. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, the problem though was that everybody would claim asylum. And that puts you in this process where you had to have a hearing. They had to determine then, these courts that we have set up, whether you fit the definition. And on average, about 14% of the people that claimed asylum were due asylum. The rest were just claiming asylum because it was a loophole. And what the Obama administration was doing, and then the Biden administration now, is they were letting these people in the country to wait for their hearing for 2 or 3 years, and they would never show up, and they'd just disappear into the night. And so it was kind of a joke. It was really just a giant loophole for our immigration system. And so Trump said, wait a minute, this is simple. The law says we either have to detain him until the hearing, or if we don't have room, which we don't, they have to go back to Mexico. They have to wait there. It all got worked out. It was working effectively. Our numbers are about illegal immigrants crossing about, I think it was 1/4 of what it is today, just a year ago. It worked. So we sued, along with Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt, we sued the administration, and we did this, we won. We went all the way to the Supreme Court, and we got an injunction to force him to do it. Now, we don't know right now whether they're actually trying to get around it and still not following even a Supreme, let alone federal law. Maybe they're even ignoring a Supreme Court order. We're trying to figure that out. We're actually developing a lawsuit right now. It goes back and basically sues them for not actually following a Supreme Court order. So we'll see how that goes. We haven't filed it yet. We're waiting to figure out some of the numbers. But it's really important that we win on that because that is a very effective tool. And it's in federal law. The President of the United States is supposed to follow it, and he's been ordered to follow it. We're going to find out if he is. If he's not, we'll be back in court.
We're open for a few questions, just a few. But while I get from here to there, Attorney General.
I can't even, I don't even know where you are. I can't find you.
Let me ask you a question that came up that people have sent. The state of Texas has been spending a lot of money and has more to spend on trying to take care of the people that are being placed all over the state or coming in, not only from the southern border, but also from Afghanistan and any place. Are we able to get reimbursed by the federal government for anything? Can you address that, please?
As far as I know, we're not being reimbursed for most of the cost of what it costs the state of Texas, whether it's social costs, crime, or whether it's hard costs like health care, education, other things, food, all kinds of things. And that's part of, in my opinion, part of the strategy. One is create problems for Republican states by making it more costly for them to exist, more problems like COVID and crime, put that on the Republican states. And this is very cynical, but it's hard not to believe this when that's what is actually happening. And it seems like a lot of these people, a good percentage of them, are being moved to Republican states like Florida and Texas, and Arizona, and other Republican states. And so it seems very focused on doing as much harm as possible, as well as creating an opportunity for illegals to vote. And that is ultimately the goal. They want a one-party system, whether they have to legislate it from Washington or whether they have to bring in the votes. They don't want competition. They would rather have a California one-party system that is ruled by one group that is never going to be unelected and has no accountability.
Ken, I'm over here.
Okay, thank you.
Stand up, sorry.
It's hard to spot the microphone.
I know.
It's not big enough.
Okay, I always wondered, okay, why we have federal elections when we're electing a president and a vice president. This is going to affect everybody in the United States. why are there not the same rules, regulations, whatever? I mean, every state seems to be doing their own thing, and if that continues to be the case, we're gonna, I mean, some of us will never win another election. If they're allowed to cheat, I'm really concerned about that. I mean, Texas may be in a good position, some of the red states, but I don't know about the others.
No, you should be concerned. And
Yeah.
it is true. If you look at what happened when the polls closed, you know, we were, in all these states, they were counting votes for days. They weren't doing that in California, were they? They weren't doing that in Oregon, were they? They weren't doing that in Washington. They all closed at the same time. And the check mark went to Biden, Biden, Biden. No, they didn't have to count. They already knew. They have a massive mail-in voting scheme in those states. They don't have to count the votes. It's already done. And so, and there's nothing we can do about that. Under the Constitution, all that's required is that they follow state law. Well, in those states, mail-in ballots are just ubiquitous. They have no real check on voter fraud. So that's why it's so important that the states that we still have that are Republican better fix their voting now, because once they lose it, if we ever lose Texas again to the Democrats, this is how dire it is. They will fix the system, so that's how we vote. We won't win another election. So all they need is one break. That's the challenge we have. We have to win 100% of the time, just like I had to win 100% of the time. We have to keep the state. We cannot lose Texas, or they will grab it and they will change all the voting, and we will never, ever win it again. That is the truth. They've got this figured out. We just have to fix the elections, and once we get as many votes as we want settled in, how do we ever get back? Because we won't cheat. They will. I know that's shocking.
I just wanted to ask about the Haitians, I guess they are, in Del Rio, living under the bridge in squalid conditions, 10, 12,000 of them. They didn't walk here. Who is responsible for, this invasion?
I would say Joe Biden. And I don't know how they got him here, but I will tell you, they created a policy that basically gave them special protection. If you're from Haiti, you weren't going to get deported. Like, you were going to get to stay. And they weren't sending these people back. Now, if you're from Cuba, you might vote Republican, you don't get to stay. You're out. They don't want you here because you might be a Republican vote. So they make sure that if you're from Cuba, because you understand what tyranny is like, they don't want you here. But if you come from other countries and you have a predisposition towards voting Democrat, we're going to create special rules for you. As cynical as this all sounds, all you have to do is look at the results. And, I'll give you one more example. This whole vaccine mandate that by the way, people have asked, why haven't you sued? I'm getting criticized by my opponents for not suing. I'm not suing because there's no rule yet. It'd be like, a lot of these legislators that want me to sue are people, they're like, we haven't read the bill, but we're going to vote for it. When there's no rule, it's unprofessional, almost unethical to file a suit because you don't really know what you're filing. You're going to get dismissed. It's embarrassing. So we're waiting for that rule. But it is so incredibly hard for me to trust the federal government on these vaccine mandates and this lecture that we get about wearing masks. When over here we're letting all these people in the border with COVID, hundreds of thousands of them across the border, and then we're not testing them, we're not giving them vaccines, we're shipping them all over the country to spread COVID. So don't tell me that they care about COVID when they're letting people cross the border by the thousands. And I've talked to the Dallas police officers. They told me that these buses come in at night, these people get off the bus, are they followed, are they put somewhere? Nope, they just disappeared in the night. They tell us they care about COVID, but the facts are the facts. If they care about COVID, why are they spreading it all over the country? They're putting these people, we don't even know where they're all going. We don't know where most of them are going. The federal government, whatever Joe Biden says, does not care about COVID, or he wouldn't be doing that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paxton. Thank you for coming over and tell us a little bit about the situation on the border. Very much appreciate it. We Texans all watching the situation on the border very closely because it's affecting all of us this way or another. I'm wondering, I know your Attorney General, not exactly maybe GOP of Texas question, but my question is, why nobody in Austin, in the Senate, and the government talking about take over our country. So basically we can see right now, it's, I don't know, Democrats or whoever standing behind them, they're taking over our country as we know it, as we knew it. I come here from Russia. I lived through during the Soviet Union, completely got dismissed, right? And I just feel like it's like a déjà vu. You know, I'm living again through the same situation because a lot of people that time they knew what's happening in the country is about to completely fall apart, and it was miserable for people. Miserable. People had no food to eat, basically. And now I came here 20 years ago. I have my children here. I'm a citizen, and I feel like I'm living again through the same nightmare, you know. And nobody's talking in the GOP party, and you as our Attorney General. It's not just how did Haitians come here? It's an open border policy. It's a democratic, one-world government, open border policy. George Soros, he's paying to the tickets for those Haitians. Everybody knows. Why are you standing up? I don't hear anyone. Oh, it's a Biden. Biden is nobody. He's nothing. He's like Sleeping Joe from basement. And you guys stay and wait the way the country is gonna fall apart completely. I will believe in the communist regime again. I don't want this anymore. I already lived through communism. I don't want to be in communism again. Why nobody is stay? It's just open border policy. This New World Order, whoever behind them, it's a Kabbalists or satanic elites, whoever is there behind them. But George Soros just paid a lot of money to California, I recall. He paid lots of money, millions of dollars. He gave it to Newsom, and he got recalled. This is a lot of cheating there. Now he's paid, and people, independent journalists asking how they got money. I mean, you cannot just walk from Haiti to Texas border. We know that, right? All the young men, mostly young men, so they got paid by Soros. Soros buying their tickets and bringing them specially because they could even ship them to Florida. Florida is so much closer, over the sea, but they bring them to Texas because they want to kill Texas democracy here. Why our border is still not closed? I understand Biden doing nothing. Why Abbott doing nothing? Why we cannot send our national, guard there and stick? Why we can't call militia? Call militia. We all have guns. I have guns. Help us that I have guns. I'll go. Invasion of this foreign power. They want to settle here in Texas and turn us blue, and that's it. The country gonna be gone. If Texas is turned blue, the whole United States. I'm sorry, but somebody had to stand up and call it as it is. It's a new world government, global government takeover of the country. Why are you talking about this?
Can I say something?
Okay, let me see
This lady, I really don't know her, I met her, but she's emptying her heart out the way all of us feel. So, we want answers. And it's so hard because we can't get answers. Most of us don't even turn on the news from CNN and NBC and CNBC. And even from Fox, you get all kinds of information. So on her behalf and the behalf of everybody here, that's what we're thinking about. So,
thank you, John.
Attorney General, please, what can you say?
I can say to her, "Здравствуйте, товарищ. Как вы позвать?" Did my best in Russian. So, I understand the frustration. I have my own frustration because I am limited by I can do certain things under the Constitution, under statute. And there's a lot of people that want me to do something different. And what I try to tell them is if I do that, if I step outside of my constitutional role, then I'm no different than Obama, I'm no different than Biden. I'm just playing the same playbook they are, which is, and they have a huge advantage. I always said this, They have a huge advantage because they're not limited by the truth, the law, or decency, and we are. Because if we step outside of those three things, then we're not fighting for the country that was founded here. But we are at a disadvantage because they don't have to tell the truth, and they don't have to follow. They're not following the law. They don't feel bound by any right and wrong on this, and so we are at a disadvantage. So I think it's hard for some Republican leaders to realize, and it's hard for all of us to realize where we're at right now. This is like we are close to the verge of losing this republic, and this border strategy is clearly on purpose. And I think, we've got a Supreme Court that told us in a case called U.S. v. Arizona, when Governor Jan Brewer was in office, she was frustrated with how immigration was being handled. And what was happening was, it wasn't being handled by the federal government. It typically has not been handled well by any administration other than the Trump administration. Even Republican, honestly, even the Bushes were very pro-immigration, and they weren't really that tied into the legal part of it. So we've had a lot of presidents who haven't really worried about it, and they just let it go. Well, now Jan Brewer steps up and says, okay, we're going to fix this. We're going to pass our own laws. So they did it to basically copy federal laws. So we're going to, guess what happens? Justice Kennedy, Justice Roberts, and 3 of the liberal judges all side together, 5-3, and tell Arizona, you can't do that. This is controlled by federal law. This is their area. Well, that cannot be the right decision. This is the Supreme Court telling us what the law is. They're a third branch of government. They have the authority to interpret laws. But that cannot be the right result, because what that means is the federal government can pass any law they want, knowing they're not going to enforce it to keep the states from protecting themselves. And so here we are sitting here at the border, watching a lot of bad things happen to our state, a lot of bad things happen to our country, and supposedly we can't do anything about it. And I'll give you an example. So that leaves lawyers, like the governor who's a lawyer, probably thinking, now how do I deal with this? The Supreme Court says we have no authority. What does he do? He tries to say, okay, we're going to arrest anybody that's being transported in our state that is not being transported by law enforcement if they're illegal. We start doing that. We get sued by the Biden administration. The federal judge stops us and says, you can't do that. You can't do it. And so we're now in that fight. So we've made attempts, and I think we're going to have to make more attempts. And I think we're going to have to push the envelope more than we've been willing to push, because we are normally confined by what we think the Supreme Court has told us, but we're in a really bad situation if our governor can't defend the people of Texas from crime, from COVID, and from other harms. We're going to have to figure this out, and we're going to have to figure it out pretty quickly, because we're going to, as she said, look, you came from a place, you recognize tyranny, and we're seeing tyranny coming at us really fast. And they're trying to move it as fast as they can. It's not just the border. It's also elections. They want control. They want it to be like California. And we're Texans, and we're not going to let it be like California.
Thank you. We have one more question here. I'm sorry we can't go on forever, but all right, we'll take 2.
Only because I have
this one and one there. But I appreciate your explanation. I think many of us, many more than others, get frustrated and wonder, how can we get out of this dilemma? And I know that we need to follow the law, and there's just so much that you and the other
Okay, I'm going to tell you a story.
can do.
And I think it matters. The Revolutionary War, we had to fight. We fought. We took on the largest empire in the history of the world. And George Washington and his band lost every battle. They just kept losing. But they never gave up hope. And there was a lot of dissension. There were a lot of supporters, the Tories, supporters of the British government that wanted to stay. So it wasn't like it was easy. And yet somehow these people stuck together. They didn't give up. They didn't lose hope. They didn't stop fighting. And they won the last battle, which won the war. I believe that Texas has a destiny much like the founders. We have the right people. We have the right resources. We have a faith in something bigger than ourselves, and a God that will take care of us, that has a plan. And I truly believe that we get to be like the founders, which is not always pleasant. Most of them lost everything they had, so it's not like it all turned out great. But they did set up a free country that so many of us have enjoyed for decades. It's now our time to go fight for that freedom. And if we don't, we will be no different. We will lose it.
Thank you, Jim, very much. So to continue with the border, Governor Abbott set up a GoFundMe, and I know that at one point he had way over $1 million in there. What's the status of finishing the wall?
The status is far from being finished. It's the federal government, it's so amazing what they were doing. What Trump did, I got to go walk it with them. And how fast it was being built. I mean, we have 1,266 approximate miles. So we have about 2/3 of the border with Texas and Mexico. And it was on such a good pace. And of course, the Biden administration paid people not to build it. We were, I think, spending $6 million, it was either a day or a week, I can't remember what it was now, to not build the wall. They clearly don't want the wall. The state of Texas put $250 million in. And there is a GoFundMe effort. Maybe it's raised $1 million. I knew it was somewhere around there. It's going to take billions. And we can only do, we got a lot of work to do, and we're going to have to do a lot of fundraising. But I heard that they're trying to pick a contractor this month to start working on that. And if we can get landowners to donate their property, we're going to have to do this piecemeal. It's not going to be as good as if the federal government could have finished the project. But, we're Texans. We'll figure out a way.
Attorney General Paxton, the federal Constitution supersedes the Texas Constitution. What can take place if the U.S. Biden administration refuses to protect Texas against an invasion across the southern border? What can Texans do, and how fast can it be done?
So we're looking at that very issue. We're looking at that same section of the Constitution, trying to figure out how we can apply it and then how we can win. So I'm all about trying to win. I don't want to waste your resources or our time on things that we don't think we have any chance of winning. But we are definitely looking at that possibility, and I've been discussing with other statewide leaders about how we do that. I don't want to disclose too much because I don't want the other side to know what's coming. So just know that we are looking at it. We're trying to be as smart as we can, as wise as serpents and innocent as doves. That's what we're trying to be. So I don't want to disclose where we're at, other than to say that that very issue is something we are trying to determine now how we proceed forward with. Sure.
So we've had an amazing presentation tonight. We've heard from our Attorney General, who has spoken to us in a very common sense way. That's the way we like to hear the story. And he's spoken to us from his heart, and he has displayed his determination in making certain that we get the right things done in this country through this state. So for that, Attorney General, we owe you our deepest gratitude and our appreciation for all the good work you're doing. Who's going to help with the appreciation. So can I call the other person up? Yes. Mrs. Paxton? Senator Paxton? So let me tell you, folks, this is a 2-for-1 deal here. So, if you want to leave a little extra money on the table or whatever, we understand. But we've been able to get another Paxton, Senator Paxton, a darling of ours here at Heritage Ranch. She came in to root for her husband and to tell us more about him. So,
can I tell Angela something? Of course, I didn't know she was coming. So you did. But I can't tell you how many times tonight that they told me that you're the favorite Paxton.
Well, I do want you to know, I did get here in time to hear you say, my wife wanted me to tell you about her bill.
Thank you that I remember that.
Good job, good job. That's a good gentleman points for you. And, well, I am So glad to be here. We finished up a little early. I have to admit, I maybe told you a little lie. When you asked me where I was earlier, when we talked on the phone, I said I was in Austin. That was true. And you said, are you at the Capitol? And I said, yes, but I wasn't. I was on an airplane. So, but we sat on the tarmac for like 35 minutes. It took off.
On the broadest definition legally, Capitol could be anywhere in the city of Austin. So, just so you know.
I was at the Capitol. So, well, you know, we have 4 children. Our kids are 28, 26, 24, 22 now. Our son is 28, and our daughters are 26, 24, and 22. Our son, Tucker, is a software engineer in California. And he is brilliant. He was a National Merit Scholar. And I like to think that he's the one I homeschooled the longest, too. So, but Tucker displays, I've thought about this with each of our kids. If I was going to kind of just say one thing about Tucker that kind of captures what you see with him is he has this really amazing intellectual curiosity. He always is learning. He is always stretching to find out more. And he's a problem solver. That's what he does. He's a software engineer. He designs self-driving cars. He's like developing that kind of technology. That's our son, Tucker. Our next child is Abby. Abby's the one that is in the Air Force. And the thing I knew about Abby from the time she was a little bitty, she's 26 years old now. She just got married in July. She is very patriotic. The one thing I knew about Abby from the time she was itty bitty, you know, you see things in your kids, right? You look back on it and you see it, but you can never imagine kind of where it's going forward. But I look back at this, and the thing I knew about Abby, I didn't necessarily know she was going to go into the military. But I always tell people, the 2 things I knew about Abby from the time she was itty bitty were that, number 1, she was going to do something that was a noble cause. And the second thing was she'd be in charge. Okay, so, and sure enough, she goes into the United States Air Force. Little aside, she got married. She always wanted to get married on July 4th because she's very patriotic. And so she decided she was going to get, and her commission date, that's right. So she wanted to get married on the 4th of July. That was one of the things. And the other thing was she wanted Chick-fil-A to cater the reception. This pleased her father. Anyway.
Way less expensive.
Yeah. So anyway, we're planning the wedding and everything, and all of a sudden she called me one day. She goes, "Mom, I just realized July 4th is a Sunday." And she goes, "Chick-fil-A is closed on Sunday." And I'm like, "Well, what are you going to do?" And she goes, "We got to move the wedding. It's July 3rd now." So anyway, the cow came to the reception. I mean, in a bow tie and everything. That's Abby. And the thing about Abby is she's always been in pursuit of excellence. Top notch, top of the line for Abby, all or nothing. So that's Tucker and Abby. Our next child is Madison. Madison teaches children with dyslexia. Now, the interesting thing about her is that she was diagnosed with dyslexia when she was in 2nd grade. And she's bright and curious about learning, but she struggled, right? But once we realized what was going on, we were able to get her in the type of therapy to help, because the thing is, dyslexia is incredibly treatable. You can figure out what to do. We know what to do with it. But I'm like, if she can't read, what's she going to do, right? So we got her the help she needed. And she is in National Honor Society in college. She couldn't get into the university, right? Or even Baylor, so she went to Texas A&M, right? That's what. Anyway, but I mean, if any of you know, Texas A&M, it ain't easy to get into it. But Madison gets into Texas A&M, and then once she decides to major in, she decides to be a teacher and teach kids with dyslexia. Maddie has always demonstrated this incredible tenacity, and perseverance. Incredible. And our youngest child, Katie, she's 22. She's exhausted right now. I bet she's asleep because she's student teaching 4-year-olds, pre-K. So, but her class, when she graduated from high school, they had a tradition at her school that they would all vote on an adjective to describe that kid. The thing they picked for Katie was bold. Bold. She was the president of Pro-Life Aggies as a junior. First time a junior was elected that. She served for 2 years. But she stands for her passions. And she stands boldly even when no one else will. So why do I say that? I look at Tucker with that intellectual curiosity. I look at Abby with her pursuit of excellence. I look at Madison with that perseverance. And I look at Katie with her boldness. And I have to say that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Because that is their daddy's DNA. And Ken, you have served this state with that same intellectual curiosity, with that excellence, and with that tenacity and boldness. And we all are the better for it. And the state of Texas is not the same. If you had not been our Attorney General for the last 8 years, we would be not just a different state, but a different nation. And to just wrap up, I don't know, have you ever heard of Florence Chadwick?
No.
That's correct. You haven't.
That was the right answer.
That was the right answer. So, Florence Chadwick was the first woman to swim the English Channel in both directions successfully. In 1950, she swam the English Channel from France to England. 1 year later, she swam the English Channel from England to France. And that put her in the record books. The following year, and you may or may not know this story, the following year, she decided, and she was an American swimmer, she wanted to swim from Catalina Island to, yes,
LA?
the shore of California. Close enough. So she began to swim. And as she was swimming, a fog set in. And she swam, and she swam, and she swam. And of course, it's a long swim. Muscle cramps, exhaustion. And what happened was she couldn't see where she was, right? She had no point of reference. And eventually, the exhaustion got to her. And there are boats that go with the swimmers in something like this. And she raised her hand and she was like, I don't think I'm going to make it. So they pulled her into the boat. And what she was so sad to realize is she was less than a mile from the shore. And I say that because of what you told everyone just a little earlier. We're talking about in the Revolutionary War, losing, losing, losing. And it feels like that right now, doesn't it? We're submerged in this fog of chaos and lawlessness. And what seems to be taking us down. But it's the last battle that matters. And I just want to say, one of the things that you've always done for me, you've always encouraged me, don't quit. Don't quit. You are not alone, Angela. You are not alone, Ken. And we are not alone. Look around. We have each other. And I'm not quitting. You're not quitting. I won't let you. Are you quitting? No. Absolutely not. Because we know that God sees where we are. And I'm telling you, we're less than a mile from the shore. But the shore could be either one. The shore could be that cliff that we fall off of, or it could be victory. If we don't quit, it will be victory. And I want to thank you. I've always said, Joan, where are you? I was laughing because you were standing up, but no one knew you were standing up because it's not much different, right? But I always told Joan, the road to victory runs right through the middle of Heritage Ranch. And so thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for supporting Ken. Thank you for supporting us. God bless you. Don't stop swimming. Isn't that in Finding Nemo? Just keep swimming, something like that. But God bless you, and let's keep swimming together. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. It's nice to see a wife or mother express her appreciation for her husband through her children, through her eyes of her children. I thought that was a great analogy and a very good point.
But can I say this? I understand why you like it better than me. I do.
All right, listen. We're going to get a brief report from Ben. I'm going to ask the Paxtons to stay on stage with me because we're going to close with a strong Texas song. And I've heard that Angela is a very good singer. And I'm not. So we will have her help us lead it. But for just a moment, we're going to let Ben use a quick legislative song.
I kind of want to do that, but I want to tell you the rest of the story. Ken does not know this, and y'all don't know this. The surprise was going to be Angela walking from behind the stage to introduce him. Thanks to Southwest Airlines, that didn't happen. She sat on the tarmac, but I think the Lord had other things in mind. Great finish here. The thing I want to mention, don't worry about special session 2. Special session 3 is in session, and that's where Angela was this morning. We have a constitutional election coming November 2nd. Go to our website. There's a listing of all the amendments, and there's a PDF file there that shows you all the pros and cons, so you can be informed on November 2nd. So, I'm through.
Thank you. We're going to wrap this up pretty quickly. I just want to tell you, next month we're going to have an exciting meeting. So we have Henry Lester. I know he's out there somewhere. He's our mayor. What table is Henry at? But anyway, I just want you to know one thing. Henry knows something about everything. So I think you'll enjoy that presentation. He's very well experienced. Secondly, we have our own Chris Hill, our county executive. And he will be here. And he's here tonight to support us. So between the report on the city of Fairview and the county of Collin County, we have 2 experts that are going to be reporting on that. We're going to get some great information. So please book your reservations for next month quickly, because I think it's going to fill up fast. Okay? Now, we're going to end this session because I know you all want to go home. And I'm going to ask Angela to help. Let's all stand.
Sage you